It was thick, official-looking, with a law firm's name embossed in gold letters. I figured it was junk mail or maybe something about student loans. But when my roommate Jake asked why I wasn't opening it, I finally tore the seal. Inside was a letter that started with, "Regarding the Mitchell Family Trust established in your name." My hands went cold. I read it twice, then 3 times. According to this lawyer, I had a trust fund. Real one. Set up by my grandfather before he died. The letter said I could access it now that I'd turned 21. I stared at the paper until the words blurred. My family never mentioned any trust fund. Not once. Not when I worked double shifts at the campus cafe. Not when I ate ramen for dinner 5 nights straight. Not when I almost dropped out because I couldn't afford textbooks. I grabbed my phone and called home. Mom answered on the 4th ring, her voice bright and cheerful. I asked her about the trust fund. The line went silent. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. "We'll talk about this Sunday. At dinner." The drive home felt longer than usual. Every mile stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. I kept replaying Mom's words in my head. Her voice had changed when I mentioned the trust fund. It went from warm to careful, like she was picking her way through a minefield. I tried calling Dad next, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I tried my older brother Marcus. He picked up but claimed he had no idea what I was talking about. "A trust fund. Are you sure?" he'd asked. Yes, I was sure. The letter was real. The law firm was real. I'd even looked them up online. They'd been around for 40 years. This wasn't some scam. When I pulled into our driveway Sunday afternoon, Dad's car was already there. So was Marcus's truck. And Uncle Ron's sedan. My stomach twisted. Our family dinners were usually just the 5 of us. Mom, Dad, Marcus, my younger sister Emma, and me. Uncle Ron only showed up for holidays or when something serious was happening. I sat in my car for a full minute, staring at the house I grew up in. The white paint was peeling near the garage. The lawn needed mowing. Everything looked the same as always. But something felt different now. Well, like I was seeing it all through new eyes. Mom hugged me at the door like nothing was wrong. She smelled like roast chicken and her usual lavender perfume. "Tyler, honey, come in. Dinner's almost ready." I followed her inside, searching her face for clues. But she just smiled and headed back to the kitchen. Dad was in the living room with Uncle Ron. They were watching football, beers in hand, acting completely normal. "Hey, champ," Dad said without looking away from the TV. "How's school?" I wanted to scream. Instead I said, "Fine." Marcus appeared from the hallway, phone in hand. He nodded at me but didn't say anything. Emma was setting the table. She was only 16, still in high school, and probably had no idea what was going on. Envied her. We all sat down at 6 o'clock sharp, just like always. Mom brought out the chicken, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes. Everyone filled their plates. Everyone made small talk about work, school, the weather. Waited. I pushed food around my plate and waited for someone to bring it up. But nobody did. Finally, halfway through the meal, I couldn't take it anymore. I set down my fork and looked at Mom. "So," I said, "about that trust fund." The room went dead silent. Mom's smile faded. Dad stopped chewing. Marcus stared at his plate like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Uncle Ron cleared his throat but said nothing. Emma looked confused. "What trust fund?" she asked. Nobody answered her. Mom reached for her water glass, her hand shaking slightly. "Tyler, this isn't the time." "When is the time?" I interrupted. "I've been waiting 3 days for an explanation." Dad set down his knife and fork carefully. Too carefully. "Son, you need to understand something. Things aren't always what they seem." "What does that mean?" He exchanged a glance with Uncle Ron. That's when I knew for sure. Something was very, very wrong. "Grandpa set up a trust fund for me before he died," I said slowly. "According to the lawyer, it was worth a substantial amount. Enough to pay for college. Enough to give me a real start in life." "Tyler," Mom started. "Where is it?" asked. The silence stretched out like a living thing. It filled the room, pressed against the walls, made it hard to breathe. Finally, Uncle Ron spoke. The money was used. Used? I repeated. Used for what? For the family, Dad said. For keeping us afloat. My heart was pounding now. You spent my trust fund. We didn't spend it, Mom said quickly. We borrowed against it. There's a difference. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You borrowed against my trust fund. Without telling me. You were a kid, Dad said. We made decisions for the family. That money was mine. Grandpa left it for me. For my future. Marcus finally looked up. It's more complicated than that, Ty. Then explain it to me, I said. My voice was rising now. I couldn't help it. Make me understand how you justified spending money that belonged to me. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We were going to lose the house. We had no choice. When? I demanded. When did this happen? 8 years ago, Uncle Ron said quietly. After the recession hit. Your dad lost his job. Your mom's hours got cut. We were drowning in debt. I did the math in my head. 8 years ago I was 13. I remembered that year. Dad had been home a lot, stressed and angry. Mom cried when she thought no one was listening. We'd eaten a lot of pasta and sandwiches. But they'd never said anything about losing the house. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. You were too young to understand, Mom said. We were trying to protect you. Protect me. By stealing my future. The word hung in the air like smoke. Stealing. Dad's face turned red. We didn't steal anything. We're your parents. We had every right. No, I said. You didn't. The anger was building now, hot and sharp in my chest. That money was in a trust. With my name on it. Grandpa wanted me to have it. Not you. Uncle Ron shifted in his seat. Tyler, listen. Your grandfather loved you, but he didn't understand our situation. The trust seemed like the answer. We thought we'd pay it back. Did you? I asked. Pay it back. Nobody answered. That told me everything. How much was in the trust originally? I asked. More silence. How much? I said louder. $200,000, Marcus said quietly. Mom shot him a look, but it was too late. The number hit me like a freight train. $200,000. I could have graduated debt-free. I could have had money for a car, an apartment, a real start. Instead, I was drowning in student loans, working myself to exhaustion, eating ramen because I couldn't afford anything else. And how much is left? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Nothing, he said. It's gone. We took out loans against it, Uncle Ron explained. When we couldn't pay those back, the trust was liquidated to cover the debt. My hands were shaking. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. So let me get this straight. You borrowed my money. Then you lost my money paying back the loans you took out against my money. And nobody thought to tell me. We were going to, Mom said desperately. When you were older. When you could understand. I'm 21, I said. How much older do I need to be? Emma was crying now. She hated conflict, hated when the family fought. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Did Grandpa know? Yes. Before he died, did he know what you were planning? Mom shook her head. He died before the recession. Before everything fell apart. So he never would have agreed to this, I said. He would have hated it. Dad slammed his hand on the table. We did what we had to do. We kept a roof over your head. Food on the table. Clothes on your back. That money went to supporting you too. But it was supposed to be for my future, I said. Not for fixing your mistakes. Our mistakes. Dad's voice was dangerous now. Tyler, you have no idea what it takes to run a family. To keep everything together when the world is falling apart. Then you should have told me, I said. You should have been honest instead of letting me find out from a lawyer. Marcus stood up suddenly. Maybe we should all calm down. Stay out of this, Dad snapped. Marcus sat back down. The tension was suffocating. I looked around the table at my family. Mom was crying. Dad was furious. Uncle Ron looked uncomfortable. Emma was pale and scared. And Marcus wouldn't look at anyone. Did you know? Asked Marcus. Did you know about the trust fund? He hesitated. I found out last year. And you didn't tell me. I thought Mom and Dad would handle it, he said weakly. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Handle it. Right. I pushed back from the table and stood up. I need some air. Tyler, wait. Mom started. But I was already walking toward the front door. Outside, the evening air was cool and sharp. I walked to the end of the driveway and stood there trying to breathe. Trying to process everything. $200,000. My grandfather had worked his whole life, saved his money, planned for my future. And my parents had thrown it away. I heard footsteps behind me. Marcus. Go away, I said. Ty, come on. I said go away. He stopped a few feet back. I'm sorry. I should have told you. Yeah, I said. You should have. They were desperate, Marcus said. You don't remember how bad it was. Do. I was in high school. I heard them fighting at night, talking about bankruptcy, about losing everything. I turned to face him. That doesn't make it right. I know, he said. But they're not evil. They're just people who made a hard choice. They made a choice that wasn't theirs to make, I said. That's the point. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. He looked tired. Older than his 24 years. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted. But I can't just let this go. The money's gone, Ty. Fighting about it won't bring it back. It's not about the money, I said. It's about the lie. The betrayal. They let me struggle for years when they knew what they'd done. We stood in silence for a while. Finally, Marcus said, for what it's worth, I think you have a right to be angry. Thanks, I said flatly. But that doesn't help much. He nodded and walked back toward the house. I stayed outside until the stars came out. When I finally went back inside, the dinner table was cleared. I could hear voices in the kitchen, low and urgent. I didn't join them. I went straight upstairs to my old bedroom. It looked exactly the same as when I'd left for college. Same posters on the walls. Same books on the shelf. Same blue bedspread. But it didn't feel like home anymore. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. I reread the lawyer's letter for the 100th time. At the bottom was a phone number. I hadn't called it yet. Now I did. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Hendricks and Associates, this is Paula speaking. Hi, I said. My name is Tyler Mitchell. I received a letter about a trust fund. Oh yes, she said. Her voice became more professional. Mr. Mitchell, we've been trying to reach your family. Can you hold for a moment? I'll get Mr. Hendricks. Sure. The hold music was classical, calm. I felt anything but calm. After a minute, a man's voice came on the line. Tyler, this is James Hendricks. Thank you for calling back. I have some questions, I said. About the trust fund. Of course, Mr. Hendricks said. I imagine you're quite confused. That's putting it mildly. He sighed. Tyler, I knew your grandfather. He was a good man. He set up that trust specifically for you. He wanted to make sure you had opportunities. My parents told me they borrowed against it. That it's all gone. There was a pause. That's partially true. The trust was used as collateral for several loans. But your grandfather anticipated that possibility. He put certain protections in place. My heart skipped. What kind of protections? There was a clause, Mr. Hendricks explained. If the trust was depleted before you turned 25, a secondary fund would activate. Your grandfather was very thorough. A secondary fund. Yes, it's smaller, about $50,000. But it's solely in your name. Your parents have no access to it. No one does except you. I couldn't breathe. $50,000. It wasn't the full $200,000. But it was something. It was a chance. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? Yes. Because it was locked until you turned 21 and made contact with us. Your grandfather wanted you to be old enough to make your own decisions. Does my family know? They do now, Mr. Hendricks said. I sent them a copy of the letter I sent you. So that's why Mom had sounded so strange on the phone. That's why they'd called this emergency dinner. They knew. They knew there was still money. And they were probably hoping I'd share it. The realization made me feel sick. What do I need to do? Yes. To access the money. Come to my office, Mr. Hendricks said. We'll sign some papers, and I'll transfer the funds to an account in your name. You can do whatever you want with it. When? Anytime this week. How's Tuesday afternoon? Tuesday's perfect. After I hung up, I sat in silence. $50,000. It wasn't enough to cover all my student loans. But it would cover most of them. It would give me breathing room. A chance to focus on my studies instead of working 40 hours a week. A chance at the future Grandpa had wanted for me. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Mom knocked softly on my door. Tyler. Can we talk? Come in. She opened the door slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. Her eyes were red from crying. She sat on the edge of my bed. I'm so sorry, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to hear it. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. We were desperate, she continued. You have to believe me. We weren't trying to hurt you. We were just trying to survive. You could have told me, I said quietly. Even if you had to use the money, you could have been honest about it. I know, she whispered. We were ashamed. And then time passed, and it got harder to say anything. We kept telling ourselves we'd find a way to replace it before you found out. But you didn't. No, she admitted. We didn't. Mom twisted her hands in her lap. The lawyer called your father today. About the secondary fund. I know, I said. What are you going to do with it? She asked. There it was. The real reason for this conversation. I looked at her carefully. I'm going to use it for school. Pay off some loans. To give myself a chance. She nodded. That's good. That's what your grandfather would have wanted. Is it? Yes. Or were you hoping I'd help the family? Pay off some of your debts. Her face crumpled. Tyler, that's not fair. Isn't it? I felt the anger rising again. You spent my money without asking. Now there's more money, and you want to know what I'm doing with it. How is that fair to me? We're your family, she said. We're supposed to help each other. Then where was my help? Shot back. When I was working doubles at the cafe. When I couldn't afford textbooks. When I had to choose between eating lunch or saving bus fare. We didn't know it was that bad. Because I didn't tell you, I interrupted. Because I didn't want to be a burden. Because I thought I was supposed to figure it out on my own. Meanwhile, you knew. You knew what you'd done, and you let me struggle anyway. Mom was crying again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to comfort her. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to make things okay. But the hurt was too deep. Too raw. I need space, I said. Please. She stood up slowly. Okay. But Tyler, don't shut us out completely. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. After she left, I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling. Monday morning I skipped my classes and drove back to campus early. I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Every corner held memories that felt tainted now. Jake wasn't in our dorm when I got back. I was grateful for the silence. I needed to think. I made a list of everything I needed to do. First, meet with Mr. Hendricks on Tuesday. Second, figure out my budget once I had the money. Third, decide what to tell my family. If anything. My phone buzzed with text. Mom asking if I was okay. Dad saying we needed to talk. Marcus apologizing again. Emma confused and worried. I responded to Emma, telling her I loved her and none of this was her fault. I ignored the others. Tuesday afternoon, I drove to Mr. Hendricks's office. It was in a nice building downtown, all glass and steel. His secretary led me to a conference room where Mr. Hendricks was waiting. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. "Tyler," he said, shaking my hand. "Please sit." We spent an hour going over documents. He explained everything carefully, making sure I understood. The $50,000 was mine, free and clear. No strings attached. My grandfather had set it up through a different bank, in a way that kept it separate from the original trust. "He was protecting you," Mr. Hendricks said. "He knew sometimes families make difficult choices. He wanted to make sure you had something that was just yours." "I wish I could thank him," I said. "He knew," Mr. Hendricks said gently. "I spoke with him many times. He loved you very much. He wanted you to have opportunities he never had." I signed the papers with a hand that shook slightly. When I left the office, I had a bank account with $50,000 in it. The first thing I did was pay off $30,000 in student loans. Just like that, with a few clicks online, a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. The second thing I did was set aside $10,000 for living expenses. Rent, food, books, everything I needed for the next year. The remaining $10,000 I left untouched. Emergency money. Security. For the first time since starting college, I felt like I could breathe. That evening, Jake and I got pizza to celebrate. I hadn't told him all the details, just that some money from my grandfather had come through. "That's awesome, man," he said, raising his soda cup in a toast. "To dead grandpas who actually come through." I laughed despite everything. "To Grandpa." That night, Dad called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Tyler," he said. His voice was rough. "We need to talk about this." "I don't think we do," I said. "That money is mine. Grandpa wanted me to have it. I'm using it for school like he intended." "You don't understand the situation we're in," Dad said. "The house needs repairs. Your mother's car is dying. Marcus needs help with." "Stop," I interrupted. "Just stop." "But..." "No," I said firmly. "You made your choices. You used my trust fund to fix your problems. That's done. This money is mine, and I'm keeping it. After everything we've done for you." His voice turned cold. "After we raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head. This is how you repay us." "Repay you?" I felt the anger flooding back. "For what?" "For being parents. That was your job. That's what you signed up for when you had kids." "You're being selfish," Dad said. "I'm being smart," I countered. "I'm making sure I have a future. Like Grandpa wanted." "Your grandfather didn't know what he was doing," Dad said. "He was old, out of touch." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't you dare talk about him like that. He was protecting me. From you." The line went silent. "Tyler, I'm done with this conversation," I said. "I'll come home for holidays. I'll be civil. But the money stays with me." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt oddly calm. For the first time, I'd stood up to my father. Really stood up to him. Felt good. And terrifying. Over the next few weeks, things settled into a new normal. Focused on my classes. My grades improved now that I wasn't exhausted all the time. I quit one of my jobs at the cafe. I could afford to. I even went on a date with a girl from my psychology class. Life felt possible again. Mom texted me occasionally. Simple things. "Hope you're doing well. Miss you. Love you." I responded with short, polite answers. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I didn't want to completely cut her off either. Marcus called once, asking if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, mostly because I was curious what he wanted. We met at a cafe near campus. He looked tired, stressed. "How are you?" he asked. "Better," I said honestly. "Good. That's good." We drank our coffee in awkward silence for a moment. Then Marcus said, "I want you to know I fought for you when they were deciding about the trust fund. I was only 16, but I told them it was wrong. But they did it anyway," I said. "Yeah," Marcus admitted. They did it anyway. And I felt guilty ever since. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Asked. When you found out last year. Because I was scared, he said simply. Scared of breaking up the family. Scared of taking sides. I know that's not a good excuse. It's not, I agreed. But I appreciated his honesty. For what it's worth, Marcus continued, I think you're doing the right thing. With the money. Grandpa would be proud. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Thanks. Mom and Dad will come around, he said. Eventually. Maybe, I said. But things won't be the same. No, Marcus agreed. They won't. We talked for a while longer. He told me about his job, his girlfriend, his plans. Normal brother stuff. Felt good. Like maybe this one relationship could be saved. When we parted, he hugged me. I'm proud of you, little brother. You stood up for yourself. Back in my dorm, I thought about his words. Standing up for yourself. Sounded simple, but it wasn't. It meant disappointing people. Setting boundaries. Being okay with others being angry at you. It was hard. But it was necessary. That night, I wrote a letter to my grandfather. I know he was dead, but I needed to say it anyway. Thanked him. For thinking of me. For protecting me. For loving me enough to make sure I had a chance. I told him about school, about my friends, about my plans for the future. I told him I missed him. That I wished I'd known him better. That I'd make him proud. I never sent the letter, obviously. But writing it helped. Thanksgiving was coming up. Mom called to ask if I was coming home. I don't know, I said. Please, she said. Emma really wants to see you. She misses you. I hadn't thought about how all this affected her. She was caught in the middle, confused about why her family was falling apart. Okay, I said. I'll come. But just for the day. That's all I'm asking, Mom said. She sounded relieved. When I arrived on Thanksgiving morning, Emma ran out to meet me. She threw her arms around me and didn't let go for a full minute. I missed you, she said into my shoulder. I missed you too, Em. Inside, Mom had cooked the usual feast. Turkey, stuffing, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce. The table was set beautifully. Dad was in the living room. He nodded at me when I walked in but didn't say anything. Marcus arrived with his girlfriend, Kelly. She was nice, funny. She helped lighten the mood. We sat down to eat, and for a while it was almost normal. We talked about safe topics. Cool. Work. The weather. Emma's upcoming winter concert. But the tension was always there, just under the surface. After dinner, Dad asked if we could talk. Just the two of us. We went to his study. It was a small room off the kitchen, filled with books and old furniture. Dad's sanctuary. He sat in his chair and gestured for me to sit across from him. I owe you an apology, he said. The words surprised me. Dad wasn't usually one to apologize. I handled this badly, he continued. All of it. The trust fund. The way I talked to you. I was defensive and angry, and you didn't deserve that. Waited. He seemed to be struggling with what to say next. When you're a parent, Dad said slowly, you want to give your kids everything. You want to protect them from the world. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes the world is too much, and you're drowning, and you make choices you're not proud of. I get that, I said. I do. But Dad, you should have told me. Even if you had to use the money, I deserved to know. You're right, he said. We should have been honest. We were just so ashamed. And then time passed. And it became this secret we couldn't figure out how to tell. Do you understand why I'm keeping the secondary fund? Yes. Yes, he said quietly. I do. And I don't blame you. It's yours. Your grandfather wanted you to have it. You should use it however you think best. Something in me relaxed. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. Thank you, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dad said, I'm proud of you. I know I don't say it enough. But I am. You're doing well in school. You're working hard. You're building a life for yourself. That's all a parent can ask for. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Thanks, Dad. We hugged, awkward and brief. But it was something. When I left the study, Mom was waiting in the kitchen. She'd clearly been listening. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I think it will be. She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. The rest of Thanksgiving passed peacefully. We watched football, ate pie, told old stories. Emma sat close to me on the couch, like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. Before I left, Marcus pulled me aside. I'm glad you came. It meant a lot to everyone. I'm glad I came too, I said. And I meant it. As winter settled in, life found a rhythm. I focused on school, pulled straight A's for the first time in my college career. I even joined a study group and made new friends. The financial pressure was gone, and it showed. I visited home for Christmas. This time the atmosphere was easier. We'd all found a way to exist together, even with the hurt still there. I bought presents with my own money. Small things but meaningful. A new sweater for Mom. A book Dad had mentioned wanting. A video game for Emma. Gift cards for Marcus and Kelly. On Christmas Eve we all sat around the tree. Emma was in charge of handing out presents. When she gave me a small wrapped box, I was surprised. It was from Mom and Dad. Inside was a framed photo of Grandpa and me. I was about 8 years old, sitting on his lap, both of us laughing at something off camera. I'd never seen this picture before. We found it when we were cleaning out the attic, Mom said. We thought you should have it. I stared at the photo, at Grandpa's kind face, at my younger, innocent self. Thank you, I said, my voice thick. That night I put the photo on my desk back at the dorm. Every time I looked at it, I remembered why I'd fought so hard. Why I'd stood my ground. Because Grandpa had believed in me. Had wanted me to have opportunities. To have choices. And I wasn't going to let that gift go to waste. By spring semester I'd figured out my major, psychology. I wanted to help people navigate difficult family situations. Maybe because of my own experience. Maybe I could help others avoid the pain I'd gone through. I applied for internships and got accepted to one at a counseling center near campus. The work was hard but rewarding. One Saturday in March, I drove home unannounced. I had something I wanted to do. I went to the cemetery where Grandpa was buried. I hadn't been since the funeral years ago. His grave was in a quiet corner under a big oak tree. I sat down on the grass beside the headstone. Hey, Grandpa, I said softly. I'm sorry it took me so long to visit. The wind rustled through the oak leaves. I found out about the trust fund. About what happened to it. I was angry for a while. Really angry. A bird landed nearby, hopped around, then flew off. But I also found out about the secondary fund. About how you protected me. Thank you for that. Thank you for thinking ahead, for making sure I'd be okay. I traced his name on the headstone with my finger. I'm doing good now. I'm in school. My grades are great. I'm going to graduate without crushing debt because of you. I'm going to make something of myself. I promise. I stayed there for an hour just sitting, thinking, remembering. When I finally left, I felt lighter. Like I'd closed a chapter and was ready to start a new one. That evening I had dinner with my family. It was a normal Sunday dinner, nothing special. But it felt different. The anger had faded, replaced by understanding. We'd never be the same as before. Too much had happened. But we were finding a new way to be a family. A more honest way. Mom asked about school. Dad asked about my internship. Emma talked about her boyfriend. Marcus joked around with Kelly. It was nice. Normal. At the end of the night, as I was leaving, Mom walked me to my car. I'm glad you came, she said. Me too, I said. She hesitated, then asked. Are we okay? You and me. Thought about it. Really thought about it. We're getting there, I said honestly. It'll take time. But yeah, I think we'll be okay. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's all I can ask for. Senior year arrived faster than I expected. I moved into an apartment off campus, splitting rent with Jake and another friend. Having my own space, my own routine felt like freedom. The money from Grandpa's fund was still there in my savings, carefully managed. I'd learned to budget, to plan, to make smart decisions. My internship at the counseling center turned into a paid position. The work was intense but fulfilling. I sat with people as they shared their stories. Broken families, betrayals, financial struggles. I understood them in a way I couldn't have before. One client, a young woman named Sarah, reminded me of myself. Her parents had taken money from her college fund without telling her. She was furious, hurt, lost. "How do you forgive something like that?" she asked during one of our sessions. I thought carefully before answering. "Maybe you don't," I said. "Not completely. Not right away. But you can choose to move forward. You can choose to build your own life, separate from what they did." "Is that what you did?" she asked. Smiled. "Yeah, it is. Helping others helped me too. It gave meaning to everything I'd gone through." In October, I got a call from Mr. Hendricks. "Tyler, I wanted to let you know that your grandfather's estate has been fully settled. There were some assets we didn't know about. Some stocks, a small investment account. After taxes and fees, there's about $15,000 left. It's yours." I was stunned. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. Your grandfather was quite savvy with his investments. This money was separate from everything else. Do you want me to transfer it to your account?" "Yes," I said. "Absolutely. Another gift from Grandpa. Another piece of security." I didn't tell my family about this money. Felt private, personal. Something just between Grandpa and me. Used $5,000 of the new money to fully pay off the rest of my student loans. The remaining $10,000 went into savings. By the time I graduated in May, I was completely debt-free. Walking across the stage to receive my diploma, I thought about everything it had taken to get there. The anger, the betrayal, the hard conversations. The choices I'd made to stand up for myself. Mom, Dad, Marcus, and Emma were all in the audience. They cheered when my name was called. After the ceremony, we took photos. Mom cried. Dad hugged me, told me he was proud. Emma jumped up and down with excitement. "You did it," she squealed. "Yeah," I said, laughing. "I did." We went out for dinner at a nice restaurant. Dad insisted on paying, even though I offered to split it. "Let me do this," he said. "Please." So I let him. Over dinner, Marcus announced that he and Kelly were engaged. Emma was going to be a bridesmaid. Mom was already planning decoration. It felt good to celebrate something happy, something that brought us all together. Later that night, back in my apartment, I looked at the photo of Grandpa and me. "I graduated," I told the picture. "With honors. Because of you." I'd received several job offers, all in different cities. Had options, choices, future. Everything Grandpa had wanted for me. I decided to take a position in Seattle, working for a nonprofit that helped at-risk youth. The salary wasn't huge, but the work mattered. And I could afford it thanks to Grandpa's planning. When I told my family about Seattle, Mom was sad but supportive. "It's far," she said. "But it's a good opportunity. I'm happy for you." Dad nodded. "You've always wanted to help people. This is your chance." Emma cried, but she hugged me tight and made me promise to visit. Marcus said, "Go live your life, Ty. You've earned it." The weekend before I moved, I went back to the cemetery one last time. Sat by Grandpa's grave in the morning sunshine. "I'm leaving town," I told him. "Starting fresh. Building the life you wanted me to have." I pulled out a letter I'd written. It was an updated version of the one I'd written years ago, with all my news, all my plans. "I'll always be grateful," I said. "For thinking of me. For protecting me. For loving me enough to plan ahead." I left the letter tucked under a rock by his headstone. The wind picked up, rustling through the oak tree. For a moment, I could almost hear Grandpa's voice. "Make me proud, kid." "I will," I whispered. "I promise." I drove back home for one last family dinner. Mom had made all my favorite foods. We ate and talked and laughed. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still unspoken hurt that lingered. But there was also love, forgiveness, understanding. You know, Dad said at one point, I've learned a lot from you. About integrity. About standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. We all have, Mom added. Marcus raised his glass. To Tyler. For being tougher than any of us gave him credit for. We toasted. Emma made me promise to video call every week. Promise. That night, lying in my childhood bed for the last time, I felt at peace. The journey from that Sunday dinner, when I'd first asked about the trust fund, to now had been brutal. But it had also been necessary. I'd learned who I was, what I stood for, that I could survive betrayal and come out stronger. That family was complicated but still worth fighting for. That protecting your future meant sometimes disappointing people you love. Most importantly, I'd learned that Grandpa's gift wasn't just money. It was the lesson that I mattered. That my future was worth protecting. That I deserved to build a life on my own terms. Moving day arrived with clear skies. Jake helped me load my car. Everything I owned fit into a sedan and a small U-Haul trailer. My family stood in the driveway watching. Emma was crying. Mom was trying not to. Dad kept checking that I had everything. Got your registration? Yes, Dad. Insurance cards? Yes. Emergency numbers? Dad, I'm 22, not 12, I said, smiling. He smiled back. I know. I just worry. Marcus pulled me aside. Hey, before you go, I want you to know something. What? That secondary fund. The 50,000. He paused. I knew about it. Grandpa told me before he died. He made me promise not to say anything until you were old enough to handle it. I've carried that secret for years. I stared at him. Why are you telling me now? Because you deserve to know the whole truth, he said. Grandpa trusted me to look out for you. I didn't do a great job when Mom and Dad used the first trust fund. But I kept his other secret. And I'm glad I did. I hugged him hard. Thank you. Go be great, Ty. Call me when you get there. Mom hugged me next, long and tight. I love you. No matter what happened, no matter what mistakes we made. I love you. I love you too, Mom. Dad shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry. For everything. But I'm also grateful. You taught us all something important. Emma was last. She clung to me, sobbing. You have to come back for Christmas. Promise. I promise, Em. I promise. I got in my car, started the engine. They all waved as I pulled away. In my rearview mirror, I watched them get smaller and smaller until they disappeared. The road ahead was long. But I was ready. Seattle was everything I'd hoped for. The job was challenging but meaningful. My coworkers became friends. I found a small apartment with a view of the water. On weekends I explored the city, hiked in the mountains, tried new restaurants, built a life that was entirely my own. Called home every Sunday, talked to Mom, Dad, Emma, sometimes Marcus. The conversations got easier over time, less loaded, more genuine. Emma came to visit during summer break. I showed her around the city, took her to Pike Place Market, taught her how to take the bus. This is so cool, she said, eyes wide. You're really living your dream. Yeah, I said. I guess I am. At night, when I was alone in my apartment, I sometimes thought about that Sunday dinner. The fork clattering. The silence. The moment everything changed. Had been painful. Devastating. But it had also been necessary. Sometimes you have to break things before you can rebuild them stronger. My family would never be the same. But we were honest now. Real. We'd learned that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about trying, failing, and trying again. About setting boundaries and respecting them. About forgiving without forgetting. And when I looked at Grandpa's photo on my bookshelf, I felt his presence. His love. His belief in me. I made it, Grandpa, I whispered. I'm okay. Better than okay. The city lights sparkled outside my window. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, a silly meme. I smiled and replied. Tomorrow I'd go to work, help more people navigate their own family struggles. But tonight I just sat in my apartment, in my life, in the future Grandpa had fought to give me. And I was grateful. For the journey. For the pain that made me stronger. For the family that, despite everything, loved me. For the man who saw my potential and protected it. Sometimes the quietest person at the table is the one who already won. Grandpa had fought for me in silence. And now I was living the life he'd dreamed I'd have. That was his real gift. Not just money but belief. And I carried it with me every single day.